Hey everyone, it's Kristen, and I wanted to talk to you about making your own personal oracle deck using AI text to image apps. In this case, I'm going to show you 6 decks that I made using Adobe Firefly. I have really been enjoying using their beta version. It's in beta right now, which means that you can't use any of your images for commercial use. So all of these are personal decks, and I like making personal decks. Anyway, first of all, to me, every deck is your personal deck. You can always decide to share it later. But I think one of the great things about using AI and just some other tools to make your personal deck is that you can make it exactly the way that you want to make it. I also think if you are a little bit art challenged, these tools are really great for you to turn your idea or your vision into reality. So I just want to show you what I would say are possibilities. That's really the main thing. I want you to just think about these in terms of possibilities. There are 6 decks that I think look very different from each other, and they all have different deck concepts, but when you can also create artwork that is specific to that deck, it's, that's really where the magic happens. So I'm going to kind of go through one at a time. And if you're not familiar with Adobe Firefly, I will share the link below. I would suggest just get on there and play. There's some tutorials for it. I'm not going to be doing a tutorial today, so you may need to. Some of these things that I'm going to talk about, it might be a small learning curve, but what I would suggest is that you just go to the app and just start playing around. This is a text to image app, which means that you're going to have to write prompts, and whatever you write, the software is going to try to generate that for you. So this first deck is I call Black Girl Magic Oracle. Just move some of these up a little bit so you can see. So I'm just going to be showing some of the images just so you can get a sense of what the images look like. And the parts that I made with Adobe Firefly are the images. I actually pull this into Canva, and that's where I add borders and text. So just so that you know, we're really just talking about the imagery here. And so for this one, I used the prompt abstract of Black woman dancing, and then I just put in different kind of variables to that. I think it's important to say the word abstract is really important because without that, I did not get the kind of distorted limbs, like the extra long arms and things like that, which I like. I think it adds to the deck concept. So when you're creating a prompt, it's really going to help you focus on your words and describe each card in a very specific way. I also noticed as I was using the app, so once you have your prompt, the other part to creating an image is different styles. So think about filters if you're using like a photography app. So different styles you can choose, and each style is going to change your image in a different way. I found that I really liked watercolor, collage, and hyper-realistic styles. So you'll kind of see some of those styles in most of these decks. The collage gives it a really textured, try to see if you can see the kind of texture in here, these kind of textured pieces, and also some of this on the outside, which I really like. I like that textured appearance. The watercolor to me just makes everything nice and soft, and the hyper-realistic gives a slightly more realistic view of the faces in particular. In this case, I used graphic with the watercolor, with the collage. So it's not going to look like a photograph, but it's going to look more like a painting, like a more realistic style painting. So it's somewhere between cartoon and realistic painting, which is what I was going for. So I'll just show some different images. And as I said, you can just change the prompt. What's interesting is that with those styles, they kind of have their own built-in color scheme. And so you'll see the main color scheme coming out with some of these colors, the kind of browns and oranges. In this case, I did colorful abstract, and it added these extra colors, like more pinky colors and kind of brighter colors. So every little word, you know, makes a difference. And that to me is really fun about this process, that I really think it helps you to hone in on the card itself, the energy of the card, what you're trying to convey with the card, and what does that actually, what are those words? For some of these, I put like elderly Black woman. So just, again, thinking about how to make some subtle changes to each one. I think for this one, I did toddler. So I like how the cards are showing all different types of kind of positions. The fact that I used the word dancing also made each of them show the full body, because in order to see someone dancing, you kind of have to see their whole body. If I didn't use the word dancing, it probably would have given me just a profile, just like a, you know, a headshot or something like that. So again, every word matters when you're doing these. So just think about those things when if you decide to use AI. So I really just want to give everybody just kind of an introduction to these text-to-image tools and how they work, and specifically looking at Adobe Firefly. This deck is the Kindred Spirits Kipper cards. So Kipper is a system. It's similar to, I don't want to say it's similar to Lenormand. It has 36 cards like Lenormand, but a little bit different in terms of the cards and how it's read. This one, I use some of the very same styles. So you'll see hyper-realistic here, the watercolor, the collage style. One of the things that I did differently with this one is I added a style called graffiti, and it makes a more like black lines, kind of like an outline to everything, which I think looks really nice. So think about, what are you trying to convey? I really like the hyper-realistic style for this because again, it doesn't make the people look too cartoony, but it still looks like a painting. I wanted to say this because I forgot to mention this. Because this is the beta version of Adobe Firefly, they have a watermark for every image. You can see the watermark here. I just kind of blended it into my design. This was the very first one I was playing with, so I hadn't really thought about it. But you can see with these, I kind of, the watermark is still here. I just cut them off. I just cropped them to the point where you can't really see the watermark in these. So that's kind of a workaround for a watermark if you're concerned about that. Another thing to think about is, for example, for me to get this image, you can regenerate. You have maybe use the same prompt and you can just regenerate until you get what you want. I probably had to regenerate this one about 30 times to get this particular image. So a lot of it is just putting the prompt in and then just kind of seeing what comes out. With AI, it is creating an image based on data sets of other images. So it's not copying anything, it's building an image based on what it thinks you're asking for. So like military, it's not going to come out with anything that is exact in terms of actual military. It's giving you something that it thinks looks like what military looks like. So just keep that in mind. Same thing with money. If you look closely, you will see it doesn't really look like money. So those are just some things to keep in mind with where the AI technology is right now. Okay, so that is the Kindred Spirits Kipper. The next two I'm going to show you, I did something similar, and they're both two decks that I kind of remade. So I think another great idea for using this is to remake a deck. So for example, these were two decks that I had many years ago. One of them was destroyed in a water leak, and then the other one I just parted ways with a long time ago. So these two decks, the originals, are out of print. This one is based on the Fortune Teller's Mahjong cards, and this one is based on, it was a kit called the Book of African Divination. These were called Tikar Spider cards. So this is my remake of each of those decks. And so it's great to remake a deck because you can make it in the way that makes the most sense to you. So for example, with this deck, this original deck was 111 mini cards. So they were doubled, like the cards were doubled. So I didn't do that. I just made single cards for this one. And with this original deck, for example, let me find one that was actually in there. Social problems and social activities were two different cards in the deck. So I think there were 80 cards total. What I did was I just put those two on the same card. So it's a reversal. So I'm just using the reversals for these. So when you shuffle them, you have to make sure that you shuffle them with reversals to use. And that way I added a few more like extra cards that I thought should be in the deck. And then I also don't have to have so many cards as well. So I think that's a really great way to think about this process and just the process of making your own personal deck. That's one of the reasons why I like to make them, like I said, remaking things. So I'm just going to show, let me say this really quickly. For both of these, I use different styles. I used this one I used just a very simple style. This one I had a lot more kind of style layers, and that's what, when you add styles, it's really, I would say for most of these, I'm using at least 6 different styles, and they're just kind of layered on top of each other to give you the image that you see. The thing that I did kind of specifically for these two was my prompts included the words in a Chinese painting style, and then this one I did in an African painting style, because these two decks were very culturally specific, and I like the way that they came out with these particular painting styles, and so they were really in alignment with how I envisioned the deck. You could do in a Van Gogh painting style, or you could do in an impressionistic painting style. So that's another thing you can add to your prompts to give the image a little bit more specificity. And what it does, I'll show you with this one first. The other thing that it does when you say in a specific painting style, and you do that for all of them, you do that, then you have a very cohesive looking deck too, which I think is really important if you're making a deck or curating images, things like that. Even with the AI, even if you have all the same style, the styles are going to be slightly different. But when you say in a certain painting style, what I found is that it really does give you a more cohesive deck, and it gives you a pretty specific color scheme. Like this is, I didn't ask for it to come out in these specific colors. You see a lot of this kind of deep red color and orange. That is just the colors that came out with this particular painting style. And for me, that just makes just a lot more of a cohesive deck. I'll just put these two. So, for example, this prompt I remember was a baby in a lotus flower, inside a lotus flower. And so just thinking about the words and what words you might use to describe the images, and then seeing what comes out. So as I said, this is based on the original deck, which was called the Fortune Teller's Mahjong. And so again, you'll see this one I used a completely different style. For this one, I'll just say I used the watercolor and Baroque styles. And for this particular one, I used kind of, again, I used the hyper realistic, but I used cartoon for this one because I did want it to have that slightly cartoonish energy, but also hyper realistic, so it wouldn't get too cartoony. Let's move these down. I used also flat colors, bold lines, lino cut, which gives it this kind of wood carved look, which for me was really important for the deck concept. And what I found was that this particular layering of styles gave a really nice landscape images. I think actually the landscapes look better than the ones with the people in them. But again, this style, and also using the prompt in an African painting style, also gave it a very cohesive look and color scheme as well. So I wasn't, saying pull in these oranges and blues or things like that. That's just the color scheme that kind of came with using that prompt. Okay, so that is the deck, and I think it's really fun. If you're making your own personal oracle cards, you'll notice these are all different sizes. So I made this one kind of long and thin because the original deck, the cards were smaller, but they had that long, thin kind of look. And I wanted these to be a little bit smaller so I could do a good shuffle of them. They wouldn't be too big to shuffle reversed. So I think that's another great reason to make your own personal decks. You can make them whatever dimensions that you like. Make them decks that will, fit in your hands a little bit easier sometimes. And this one I'm going to show you is, I don't have an official name for it. It's a deck that I made to do root cause work, which is determining the root cause of different disease. And so this one I liked, again, the hyper-realistic. I liked the collage, the texture. I did use flat colors for this, and I used kind of art and painting styles for this. I am still using the watercolor because I do like that softness. And so, again, the people are kind of in between like a cartoon and more of a painterly style or painted realism. With this one, I would say it was a little bit difficult to come up with all of the images because these are really qualities. When you think about these different qualities, you have to figure out how do you convey them. And I think, to me, that's kind of the fun of doing these. I think it would be a great idea for you to do a tarot deck and have to describe each card, and also thinking about it not maybe describing it in the way that you already see it, but what does the energy of that card actually convey to you. And so coming up with the prompts, I think at first looks really easy, but when you start making the deck, it's, making these different cards, it's not always as easy as it seems. Even though these cards, I think, look really simple, I wanted them to have a really simple interface. Like this one I had to really think about. This is indigestible anger. So I said somebody eating like a hot pepper, and it kind of gave all these, I think I said angry person eating a hot pepper. So this was the image that came out. And so thinking about these words, and how you convey different information. It's fun, but it's also a challenge sometimes too. And then the last deck I'm going to show you is one that I have just finished. This one is called Swan Song. It's another poetry oracle. The Black Girl Magic one is a poetry oracle as well. And when I say that, what I'm saying is that if you look at the keywords, it's actually lines from a poem. And I just use various poems usually for this. And this one was really, it's supposed to be based on crone energy. And the prompt for this was actually pretty simple. It was just elderly blank woman. And so the blank was generally for nationality, ethnicities is what I filled in there. Sometimes there were some specifics that I was looking for. Let me see if I can find one. I think I had someone looking up, elderly woman looking up. And so you see somebody looking up. And I think I did the same thing looking down. But this is really just two styles. It is an art. You can start off with art, graphic, photo, or none. That just kind of gives you the general feeling for the image. So this was an art image first of all, and then the two styles that I used were psychedelic and concept art. So if you notice, there is a color scheme that has like some pinky purpley kind of green colors that I picked up here with the border. That is coming from the psychedelic style. So each style kind of has its own color scheme, which I think works really well for this particular deck. In this case, this is what I was trying to find, was one of the cards. I had also put in dreadlocks, like elderly woman with dreadlocks. And so this was one of the cards that came up for that. And so I think this is using the AI text to image. For me, it's just fun to play around with software like this. But I also think it helps to get you clearer in some ways. As somebody who curates decks, who has curated a lot of oracle decks, tarot decks, the process is very similar, but a curated deck, you're looking for something that already exists out in the world. When you use these apps, you are creating the thing. So you have to know what you're looking for. You have to be very specific, and you have to really understand conceptually what words to put in to get the image that you're looking for, which is sometimes a little bit harder to do. But hopefully these examples that I've shown you will give you a sense that you can do a lot of different things with, well, I'll just say Adobe Firefly. But there are a whole bunch of text-to-image apps out there. I would say just start playing with them and see what, see what comes up, see how you like them. I think they're all a great resource for creating something that is really unique to you and expresses your own, very specific outlook and very specific deck concept. So I hope you'll go out and play.